So, we are here to talk about anxiety. I'm not going to waste time about talking in to give another introduction or anything of the kind. That's already done. So, we're going to dive right into the topic. Before we do that, I just want to let you all know that I will be showing a presentation, but that presentation has not got too much information on it of any kind, because I usually like to keep my sessions very interactive. Now, of course, keeping the fact that this is an online workshop, the interaction, of course, will be slightly lesser, but we're still going to try to keep that interaction up. So I would urge you all to be present and be interactive, whether that's in the chat box or whether that's you unmuting and talking. If you feel you have something to add or to say, you can raise your hand. I would be happy to give you that turn within the session itself, not just at the end of it. Because we are talking about anxiety. Anxiety is something that is a global phenomenon now. It is not something that is faced by a handful of just few people. It's something I think everyone in their lifetime has faced at some point. So, at some point or the other, it has become almost normal or natural to face anxiety, to experience anxiety, and to be able to manage it. So that's why we're talking about anxiety today. The main the main topic, or the main discussion, would be identifying anxiety, and then would be how do we cope with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me a second. So we're going to be, like it's written here, we're going to be talking about the what, when, why, and how of anxiety. Now, the main thing I want to first know here, and you can do this by writing yes or no in the chat box, is how many of you have experienced anxiety in your life? That's it. Only three, four people. How many? The question is, how many of you have experienced anxiety? Don't answer for everybody. Almost everyone feels it is not the question. Have you felt it or not? Okay. Now there's a lot more people answering. All right. So I would say a good amount of you have experienced anxiety in your life. So you all know briefly or vaguely what anxiety feels like, or what are the symptoms, or what does it look like. I just want to do a small activity here. Again, use the chat box to answer and reply and let me know what you're thinking. The activity here is describe what you see. Now, what I'm going to be showing you in the next slide, I just want you to describe that in the chat box. Whatever you see. What do you see? What's on the screen? Can you all see? Blank screen? No, there's something else also on it. What do you see? Now, can you see? It should be visible now. Okay, three dots. There's something else also on the screen along with a blank screen. There's also something else. Is it not visible
It's not visible, ma'am.
now?
It's not visible on full screen, ma'am. When you exit the full screen, it's showing.
Just one second. Okay, now can you see it? Okay. Describe what you see. Whatever it is you can see. However well you can describe it, in whatever ways you can describe it, describe it. Okay, black dot, purple dot, black dot, gray dot on white screen, dot. Okay, cursor, gray dot on white screen, black dot. Okay. So what just happened here? Everyone is talking about a scar in our life. Okay, all right. Black dot. Okay. So plain white screen, just one spot and lots of clean area to use it whichever way we want. Okay. Small, black, large, white. Okay. So what your brain just did here was all your attention. So neuroscientifically, what happens is when we look at something, our immediate survival instinct is to notice what is offset, or what is wrong, or what is um, different, or what is standing out. So because our brain has developed that way in terms of science and evolutionary wise, it is our natural tendency to always look at the black dot before we look at the fact that there is such a big white screen empty. But there's one black dot on this screen on the side. But this very nature of our brain to notice this can sometimes cause us to always only notice the negative or the bad things or the difficult things that are happening in our lives. And that exaggeration of those negative, bad, or difficult things in our life can create a sense of anxiety. So, this is what our brain does. Our brain will has a natural tendency to pick out all that is probably going wrong or has some issue, because that is a survival instinct that we have had since the beginning of time. So when we look at a black dot, we see when we look at the screen, we see a black dot. We see what's wrong. And anxiety is very similar to this. The nature of anxiety is such that if you have ever experienced anxiety, which a lot of you have, so you know, it is the feeling in your mind, it is the thoughts and feeling that whatever is happening is going to go wrong. Everything that is happening, whatever it is, whether it is me studying for an exam, whether it is me and my friends at a social event, at a party, everyone's going to look at me, everything's going to go wrong, everybody's talking about me, I'm going to fail, I'm never going to succeed, I'm never going to get what I want, my dreams are never going to be fulfilled, I'm going to disappoint everybody. This is what anxiety sounds like. It is our tendency to which is drawn towards the wrong or the negative, that creates this exaggeration in our mind. But that doesn't mean just because we were born with this or we have an evolutionary tendency, it does not mean that we are going to be stuck like this. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So if you have experienced anxiety, you know that it has a lot of symptoms, lot of physical manifestations, a lot of ways that anxiety shows itself to us. The common ones are sweating, where you start perspiring on your whole body, your palms can sweat. um, the other one is rapid heart rate, very common. You may have noticed that your heart rate has gone higher, it's become difficult to breathe, your breath has become short. So there's shortness of breath where you're breathing like this rather than the normal breathing that we do. So it's shortness of breath that also is the cause, that also is sort of linked to your heart rate. So when your heart rate increases, your breath becomes short, and that creates a sort of cycle of more symptoms. It can make you feel like your chest is feeling tight, it is feeling constricted, that you can't breathe, that you're feeling like you're choking. Then there are also symptoms where you start feeling like you're going to throw up, like you're nauseous, or your entire throat dries up. And you start to feel a constriction in your stomach, where you either feel like you need to go to the bathroom, or you start feeling bloated, or you feel gassy, or there is also a pass of wind here and there. There's all of these are digestive symptoms that come along with anxiety. Apart from that, there are also, this is all physical symptoms, that okay, there's I may be I you may have tremors where your hand is shaking, like I mentioned, there's sweating, there's all of these things. Okay, these are all physical symptoms. Now there are also mental symptoms, right? Psychological symptoms are, you can't concentrate, your focus is all over the place, you feel like you're not able to think clearly. We call that brain fog. When we feel like I'm not able to think clearly, I'm not able to comprehend what's happening and make sense of everything. Where you feel like, you're paying attention, but nothing is going in. So you're trying to pay attention, but nothing is going in. So that distraction, the low attention, the drop in focus, the drop in sometimes retaining memory or recalling memory at the time because you're feeling so overwhelmed physically and mentally. These are all the cognitive or psychological symptoms. Along with this, there are also symptoms where you start to feel really like you have a sinking feeling in your heart. You feel very low on energy. You just feel like your entire body is drained out of energy completely. All of this is what anxiety can feel like. Now, we are saying anxiety is a broad term, okay? But there are many types of anxiety. There is, does anyone know any types of anxiety? Would you like to like write it in the chat box? If you know, maybe you all can share your knowledge as well, so that we just so that I also understand, how much in detail I need to go. So why don't you all write in the chat box and tell me what are the types of anxiety you all know of, like the different types of anxieties people face and manage and go through. What which types exist? Okay, social anxiety is one of them. Absolutely. Continue typing while I explain what social anxiety is. So, social anxiety is the fear of going to public events because of the fear of being judged, being criticized, being hated, being disliked, being ostracized, being rejected. So when we have extreme fear of the fact that everyone's looking at me, everyone's judging me, what will they think about me? What will they think about what I'm wearing? Are they talking about me? Are they thinking about me? Are they plotting against me? Do they like me? Do they hate me? When you have these thoughts excessively in your head, it makes it very difficult to go to social events, whether that's a group of 4 people or a group of 40 people, because you're constantly worried that everybody is talking about you and judging you and criticizing you and they dislike you. And that spiral of thoughts can create an immense sense of anxiety, which stops people from going to these places and facing these situations. So, that is social anxiety. Then phobias. Phobias, there are lots of different types of phobias, specialized, specific phobias um, that are related to specific fears that we have. And a fear that is very extreme is a phobia. So we all have fears. Like I get scared of heights, but I don't have a phobia of heights. I get scared of heights, of course. If I'm standing at the top of a 13-story building and I look down, I will get scared. It is scary. But it's not that I can't go to the building top, or I can't go to the terrace. It's not like I have a fear of going till the terrace or things like that. But a lot of people do have extreme phobias. Some of these phobias um, can cause very restrictive lifestyles. Like, for example, agoraphobia is one of the more popularly known ones and the more commonly occurring ones, where it is the fear of being in marketplaces. That's the literal translation, but it means that it's the fear of being in public places, like supermarkets, like movie theaters, railway, like train stations, all of these things. So it becomes very difficult for people to go into these spaces because the chaos and the sounds and the amount of stimulus that are present there is very overwhelming for them to um, you know uh, to cope with the environment. So that's agoraphobia. What other types of anxieties are there? Anyone else? Okay. Anxiety for panic situations. So that is something we call as panic disorder. So panic disorder is different, or panic attack is different from anxiety attack. And this distinction is very important to know. It's very important to know because how you deal with both of them are very different. A panic attack, I'm going to talk about that first, is a sudden and a extreme version of an anxiety attack. It comes on suddenly and it almost takes over your entire physical and mental being. It makes everything like it is the extreme version of anxiety. So it's extreme like heart rate being extremely high, palpitations, sweating, breathing becomes extremely difficult. Most people who are having panic attacks often describe it as they can't breathe, that they, like, it feels like they're choking. And it sort of handicaps the person. But the other thing to remember is panic attack is something that is short lived. It is sudden and extreme, but it is short lived, which means it can go from 1 minute to 15 minutes, but it won't last longer than 15 minutes at all. So it is the maximum duration it can last is 15 minutes. And in this panic attack, you feel an overwhelming sense of, like this feeling is taking over. This feeling is taking over everything. You feel an overwhelming sense of loss of control. And that loss of control is what we need to use in order to help you get out of that panic situation. And we'll talk about that later. But it's important to know that a panic attack is sudden, it is extreme, and it is short lived in comparison to an anxiety attack, which can come and go in waves through the day. So you may have anxiety when you wake up because your cortisol levels in your body are high. Then it may go down. Then something comes up. There's a conversation about like exams or something, and it's making you feel worked up. Your anxiety spikes, and then okay, you're like you talk to yourself, you console yourself, you feel better, and then your anxiety goes down. So anxiety, generalized anxiety, which is the most common form, generalized anxiety, comes and goes in waves through the day or through the week or through the month or through the year. It is not extreme, it is not sudden, and it is not short lived. It can come and stay for the whole day also. You may feel anxiety, you may be in that anxious state for the whole day also. Now, the difference is that when you have generalized anxiety, you are functional. It's not ke, oh, now I have anxiety, I can't do anything. No, you can still function. You're able to do things. Yes, you may be slightly slower in comprehension, slightly slower in, reactions and taking charge of things, or you may be slightly panicked and maybe doing everything haphazardly, but you're still able to go about your day. In a panic disorder or in a panic attack situation, for those 15 minutes, you can't do anything. Or that 1 minute or 2 minutes, however long it lasts for you, you can't do anything. It becomes difficult to function for that much time because that's how extreme and exaggerated it is. In both these situations, it is a feeling of loss of control. But in panic attack, the feeling of loss of control is lot higher. In a generalized anxiety situation, you still are able to talk to yourself, console yourself, deal with, the changes, deal with the ups and downs, deal with the environment, ask for help, things like that. Someone has written separation anxiety in pets. So separation anxiety is something we see even in human beings. It's not just in pets. But separation anxiety is basically the fear or it is the feeling of being unsafe when you are not around somebody who you feel safe around. So children feel this from their parents, pets feel this with their parents, parents feel this from their kids because they feel like, oh, now how will, like, now I've left my child for a couple of days and gone for a holiday or something like that, and then they start to feel separation anxiety where they're constantly worrying about what's happening with them, what is going on, how are they okay, are they not okay, all of these things. That is separation anxiety, which causes a lot of distress. But at the end of the day, it's a form of generalized anxiety. It comes under that sub bracket. The major brackets are social anxiety, generalized anxiety, panic attack, and phobias. These are the four major areas, and we discussed all of them. Does anyone have any questions regarding the types of anxiety before we move ahead? If you have a question regarding the types of anxiety, you can unmute and ask. All right. How do they get formed? Okay. So, anxiety is what causes anxiety, right? That's the question. What is causing social anxiety for some people? What is causing panic attacks for some people, or generalized anxiety for some people? So, the causes of anxiety are varied. One cause is that it is genetic. So, if you have seen your parents, like for me, for example, I have seen my mother and her siblings and her parents go through anxiety. I've seen this happen all my life. And the older I got, the more I noticed it. So I knew that it was genetically present in me, which is why I have personally faced anxiety from a very, 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 very young age, and have had episodes of that through my whole life. That's also because it genetically was a factor. And then apart from that genetics, also, it's not that just because it was genetically there, that's why I'm suffering. No. It is also the fact that along with genetics, how is your physical environment currently? What is there in your physical environment currently that is triggering your genetic component? In my circumstance, it was when I was put into a place where I had to prove myself for my 10th standard board exam. I had to prove that, okay, I'm worthy. I can do it. I can become a doctor. It was on my own that I had put this pressure. Not my parents had not put this pressure on me at all. It was self uh, proclaimed pressure that, I had said, no, want to become a doctor. I have to do it. So I have to get good marks in my 10th. If I don't get good marks, I'll fail. If I fail, I mean, that's the thing, right? All the thoughts are very exaggerated. If I don't get good marks, I will fail. Not that, okay, what are my other options? It is directly going to the extreme. I will fail. I'll never get into a college. I'll never have a future. I'll never this. I'll never that. So, genetics. Second is what is the environment you were raised in? Was it a loving environment? Did you have supportive friends and family? Do you have a support system? Did you have someone to seek help from? Did you have a safe space to grow up in? How can we say difference between normal levels of anxiety and when it becomes a more like a panic attack or phobias? Trust me, you will know. It's not something to say. It is something there is no way that you don't know when the difference between, if you have experienced anxiety and you have experienced general everyday anxiety that I was talking about, you will know if you are having a panic attack, because a panic attack feels very different. It feels very sudden, and it feels like it's taking over everything in your body and your mind. So it is not the same thing as a generalized anxiety attack. In a generalized anxiety attack, it comes and goes, it's up and down, it's a wave. That's the best way to describe it. So it's very difficult to not, honestly, it's impossible to say that you will not be able to recognize a panic attack. There is no way, only because it's impossible to not recognize it. Every single human being in the world who has had a panic attack knows, if they are educated or understand what a panic attack is, they know that this is something different. This is not like most people, especially usually men. Most people, uh, like elderly people, if they have panic attacks, they usually reach the emergency room, because a panic attack actually feels like it can, like the physical symptoms of it feel like it is mimicking a heart attack, because there's rapid heart rate, sweating, shortness of breath, constricted breathing, pain in the left shoulder. All of these things happen. It is actually not causing a heart attack at all. Physically, internally, it is not doing that at all, but all the symptoms mimic it. So a lot of people in a lot of people above 40, usually men, reach the emergency room saying, I am having a heart attack. And then the doctor will give them, an anti-anxiety medicine, and they'll feel fine in 5 minutes, and all their tests will come clear, all their heart echo, everything will come clear, and then they're sent home saying that this was a panic attack. That's how extreme a panic attack can feel. Coming back to the causes of anxiety, the causes of anxiety, like I said, can be varied. And it is very valuable to know the cause for yourself. That brings us to our next stage of understanding anxiety. Anxiety in your body, in your mind, is, think of it as a part or a component of you that you need to get to know. It's like when you have a new friend, in your friend circle, you need to get to know that person, right? To make sure that what do they like, what do they don't like. Will they be happy? Would they like to come for a movie, or would they like to go for lunch, or whatever? What are their preferences? What are their choices? Do they like watching TV shows? What music do they listen to? You want to get to know, right? um that's the same way with our anxiety. We need to get to know our anxiety. We need to understand why, when, how, and how much, what is triggering it, how is it coming about, what does it do, what does it need, how does it make me feel, how much is too much. All of these things are really important, and we are going to go through all of them. So we'll start with when. When is to understand what is triggering your anxiety, and in which circumstances is your anxiety being triggered. So our triggers are very important to know our causes, and that will be different for everybody. So I can't say that everybody's cause is the same. No. For some people, they have been through bullying, some traumatic events, some abuse, some difficult times at home, maybe getting hit, maybe some sexual abuse, or anything of those kinds. In any of those situations that mimic the trigger, the trigger being the event that happened, the trauma that took place, in any situation that even remotely mimics that, can make you feel very anxious. For example, if you were bullied in school and you are now going to college, and in college, you're not being bullied, but a friend, passes a random comment, just being like, oh, you came late today to class. What, like, for you, the fact that they're saying they came late today could be a trigger that, oh my God, what if they're now going to bully me? What if they're now going to come at me for being late? It could be unrelated, but it's for you, it's reminding you of your previous trauma. And that could cause anxiety. Even just having to go back to another school, or having to go back to a new institute, can be a reason to cause anxiety, because you've had a different experience before, and that experience may not have been great. So that is causing the level of like that is causing you to have anxiety the next time you go into a new space. So that is you understanding your trigger. Where is my trigger? What is it saying to me? What is causing this reaction in what situation? It's important to know the exact environments it is occurring in. For some people, um, visiting doctors creates anxiety because of whatever reason. It can be that, oh, in their childhood, they had to go to too many doctors, or they saw their parents going to too many doctors, or a parent was suffering a lot, or they just have a fear of, like health in general, that, oh my God, I'm worried about my parents constantly. The fear of, losing health, losing their health, losing our own health, all of these things. So it's also to know in what specific places is anxiety caused. Um, it's also important to know at what specific timing does anxiety get caused for you. Like for me, I've noticed, I've understood that in the mornings my anxiety is the highest, and at night my anxiety is the lowest. And that is a good thing for me to understand, so that I know how to manage it, so that I use more techniques, better things to do in the first half of the day, and I keep that ready rather than suffering, suffering, suffering. So knowing your triggers is very important. Knowing when they come, how much are they coming, what is the exact pinpoint of what is causing them. That is us getting to know anxiety. It is being curious about क्यों हो रहा है ये मुझे, but not thinking of like, हाय ये मुझे क्यों हो रहा है. Not self pity, not thinking like, oh my God, मैं इतनी बेचारी हूँ, मेरे को anxiety है, हाय मैं. No, this is not about self pity, this is not about self victimization. It is about understanding to empower. If we understand, we will be able to empower ourselves. But first, we have to understand. I cannot help or fix something that I don't know or don't understand. It's like I bought a TV. I don't know how to use the TV. The TV got spoiled. Now I'm trying to fix it, but I don't know how to use it only. Now think of this your anxiety as a TV. It's come, figure it out. What are the you know what buttons do I have to press in order for the TV to come on? What are the settings that I need to do? In what situations is the TV going off, or is the internet going off on the TV? Is there a way to connect? All of this is similar to understanding your anxiety. What buttons are you pressing in your what buttons is it's being pressed in your environment for your anxiety to be triggered? What buttons are you pressing for yourself to trigger your own anxiety? Many a times our own thoughts are causing our anxiety, not external situations, not external people, but ourselves. Like I said, it was my pressure of me wanting to become a doctor and prove to myself and my parents that I can do it. They didn't ask me to do it. They didn't expect me to do it. They did not have any of those demands or expectations or pressures, but I had put that. So sometimes and oftentimes it is ourself inflicting that on ourselves. So that is the part where you need to get to know your anxiety. Next is how do we manage anxiety? We are coming to the main part of today's workshop. It's most important to understand how to manage it. So we're not going to do this as an activity, but I will explain what this is in 2 minutes. We'll start by talking about how our anxiety is actually sometimes useful. It's not. Not in every situation is our anxiety bad for us. There's a reason why it's there, right? What is anxiety? Anxiety is an exaggerated version of stress. Stress, as we all know, is a very important factor for livelihood, for living our everyday life. We need stress. If we don't have stress, हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे. हम chill करेंगे. हम कुछ problem ही नहीं समझेंगे. हम anything is happening to us, we won't care because we don't have any stress to save ourselves, to protect ourselves, to earn money and nothing. We have no stress only. So anxiety is an exaggerated version of stress, which means to some level it is good for us. To some level we need it, which means that if we start to focus on using anxiety for its benefit rather than trying to remove it, that may be a better approach for some of us. For some of us, removing it is a good approach. For some of us, it is going to feel more relaxing to be like, it's okay if I have this companion of anxiety. But this companion is also there to help. So, eaten by the wolves theory is that there's this writer who said this theory. He said that at any point, if you opened the boot of his car, you would find everything a person needs in an emergency situation: a change of clothes, a flashlight, a spare tire, you know, snack bar, all of these things, like everything, pair of batteries, razor, anything that he may need in a situation of an emergency. Now, this is for his life. This writer was somebody who traveled long distances in his car for lectures. He used to go from his house to the university and back, and those were very far from each other. And oftentimes, he had found that his car would, break down, or that there would be some incident. Like it had happened a couple of times, and he felt underprepared in those situations. So what he started to do was he firstly started to get very worried. Now every time he was traveling in the car, he was getting very worried. Like he was getting very anxious that, oh, what if this happens again? And what if I'm stranded somewhere? And what if there's nobody to help? So he decided to use his anxiety as a warning signal to prepare for the worst case scenario. So he's like, okay, if the worst case scenario is that I might get eaten by the wolves because I'm driving from so far and I'm crossing a jungle, that his literal fear was that I might get eaten by the wolves. How can I prepare for that? And that's where this eaten by the wolves theory came from. And we all can do this in our everyday life. Now, think of it as, say you're going to travel and you're worried that your biggest fear is that if my passport gets lost, what will I do? So instead of just worrying, to be like, okay, if that is my biggest fear, how can I prepare for that? How can I ensure that when this happens, not if, when this happens, what will I do? How will I be ready? How will I fix this if and when this happens? That is the eaten by the wolves theory. When we use our anxiety to prepare ourselves and be ready for the future, what we are doing is we are taking control back, because anxiety is usually caused when we feel out of control of any situation. So, taking control back is the best way for us to reduce our anxiety level. Next technique, yeah, the next technique is grounding. Grounding is a very useful method of feeling connected to the here and now, the present situation. So, anxiety is usually caused because of a worry of the future, right? Because we are worried about something that may happen. Yeah, I'll tell you the name of the person, and it's not coming to me. That's why. The book is called The Last Lecture. This is the book where he talks about this, and Randy Paul is his name. Um, he's not a psychologist. He's a lecturer at. He used to be a lecturer at an engineering college. So, grounding is a way of us feeling connected and present in the current moment, in the here and now. Anxiety usually is a paranoia or a worry about the future, right? क्या होएगा? It's an anticipatory response of our body. हम एंटिसिपेट कर रहे हैं कि क्या होएगा और वो कितना बुरा होएगा, इसीलिए हम स्ट्रेस ले रहे हैं. So, grounding is a method of us being present and connected in the present today, in the here and now. So, there are many ways of doing this. These techniques are usually very useful in panic attack. It's very important to remember this. These techniques are very, very useful during panic attacks, because in panic attacks, the biggest thing we can do is just bring ourselves to the present and ground ourselves. So, what are the ways of doing this? The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. So, what you're going to do is when you're feeling really anxious or you're feeling like you're having a panic attack, the one technique that 100% works is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is you will tell yourself, name 5 things you can see in your current environment. So, you will open your eyes, look around you, and name 5 things that you can see. Then, 4 things that you can touch. Okay, I can touch my phone, I can touch this table, I can touch my laptop, I can touch my face, I can touch whatever, the pillow or whatever. Okay, so that's 4 things you can touch. 3 things that you can hear. What can I hear in my environment? Okay, I can hear the traffic, I can hear some birds, I can hear some machine going on in the kitchen. Okay, that's 3 things I can hear. 2 things that I can smell. What are the fragrances around me? Can I smell? What does my shampoo smell like? What does my perfume smell like? Is there a fragrance around me? Smell. 2 things I can smell. And last is one thing, that is the taste in your mouth. What is the current taste in my mouth? Now, this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste in your mouth, is your way of grounding yourself in the present moment using your 5 senses. And your 5 senses are very powerful. So, using them is a very good way of grounding yourself in the present moment. There are many other ways to ground yourself. You can um, you can just be like, okay, I'm going to start to name everything in my environment that is black color. Okay, my bag is black, my laptop is black, my phone cover is black, my chappals are black, my top is black. You keep doing this till you start feeling connected to your present environment, rather than thinking about the future or etc. So, grounding has many ways. A lot of people have a sweet to ground themselves, to feel like, okay, I'm present right now, I'm in the current moment right now, this is the taste in my mouth, let's focus on that. So that is grounding. Next is personal narrative. How we talk to ourselves, what we are saying to ourselves in our mind all the time is one of the most important things that causes or reduces anxiety. If I'm telling myself all the time that, oh my God, I'm screwed, I'm ruined, I don't know what I'm going to do, everything's going downhill, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm a failure, I can't do it, I can't. If this is your dialogue in your head, your anxiety levels will only go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. We have to ensure that we talk to ourselves properly, that we tell ourselves systematically positive things, that I can do this, I've got this, whatever the situation is, I can handle this. And also tell ourselves that whatever the outcome is, it is okay. It is okay. It is okay if I fail the exam. It is not the end of the world. It is okay if I'm feeling like this. It is okay if I'm experiencing these emotions. Normalize that. In sometimes what we do is, why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? Why पूछने से कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. Why पूछने से your anxiety will only increase. Instead, accept this is what I am feeling. It is okay. It is okay. I'm allowed to feel it. I'm allowed to feel whatever it is I'm feeling. There is no big deal. It is okay. So, the way we talk to ourselves, what we are saying to ourselves, how positively we are affirming ourselves, how comforting we are being towards ourselves, and how compassionate we are to ourselves is a very, very, very important factor in managing anxiety. If we don't show compassion towards ourselves and our thoughts, our feelings, our everything, we are bound to feel more and more anxious. Next is circle of concern versus circle of control. Now we all have two circles in our life. The bigger circle in our life is where all our worries are. Worries of the whole world are in this circle. This is happening, this is happening, this is the problem, mother's health, um, my health, exams, friends, ye, wo, all the issues possible. Now, that is your circle of concern where everything is in that. All the problems of the world are in that. Uske andar is a smaller circle called your circle of control, where you have to evaluate that, okay, I am worried about so many things that, okay, my exams are coming. I have to study. There's so much portion. There's so much this thing. The grading system is bad. Oh my God, everybody cheats and everyone has the paper and, all of these random thoughts are coming to your head. You have to stop and think, out of all of these worries, what is in my smaller circle of control? There aren't a lot of things we are always in control of, but the things that we do have control over, if we maintain our focus towards those things, it will be easier to manage anxiety. It will be lesser levels of anxiety that you experience. Because then you know that मुझे यही करना है, मैं इसी पे फोकस करूंगी, बाकी मेरे कंट्रोल में है ही नहीं, so it's okay. What's the big deal? Just 1 second. So that is your circle of concern versus your circle of control. The more important circle is your circle of control. Now, the next one is all case scenarios. So, we earlier spoke about eaten by the wolves theory, where you are thinking about what is the biggest fear you have and preparing for that. So, all case scenario is slightly different. Here, you look at everything. Here, you look at your best case scenario, you look at your worst case scenario, and then you look at your most likely scenario. That is, what is the best thing that can happen in the situation? Let me look at that also. Why should I not look at that? If I'm looking at the worst case scenario, I should look at the best case also, right? That I come first in class, that I ace all my exams, I stand first in class, I get into the best colleges, I get into the best universities. That's my best case scenario. My worst case scenario, I fail, and I don't move forward and I have to repeat my year. What is my most likely scenario? What is the thing that's actually most likely to happen? This helps us bring us to reality rather than pulling us in two different opposite directions that is constantly like a tug of war. This brings us to reality. This grounds us in the middle to make us understand that rationally, this is what is going to happen and it is okay. Next is get help. if you feel your anxiety is very high, if you feel like you are really struggling, you're not able to self manage, that you've tried all the tools but they don't work, it is time to get help. Please do not hesitate from seeking help from a counselor or a psychologist. It is very, very important in this day and age if for us to manage our anxiety at lower levels, to be able to sustain ourselves in high pressure situations. We have a lot of environmental triggers, we have a lot of changes constantly taking place, whether it's to do with social media or to do with the world around us or anything. We need to be equipped. And if help is needed for that, then so be it. Please don't be ashamed to ask, reach out, and find help. The same goes for your support circle, the friends, family, colleagues, teachers that you have. They are that you feel connected to, that you feel like you can trust and confide in. Please seek support from them. Seek support when you need it, because we are not meant to do this alone all the time. We are not meant to fight these battles alone. It is very difficult to deal with your own anxiety in solitude. When we seek support, when we talk to people, when we talk to our friends and family, we get some perspective. It gives us a better idea and perspective of our own problems and helps us understand those problems more from a broader lens rather than from a zoomed in lens. So a more macro view rather than a micro view, and that always helps. Zooming out of your own problem always helps, and that perspective is given usually by friends and family. You need to also I would spend some more time on this if we had more time, but at this point what I would like you to do is I would like you to think about the fact that what works for you. It's important to know that all the techniques that we've spoken about, and there are many, many more, are not for everybody. Not everyone can meditate, not everyone can do yoga, not everyone can do everything, but there's something that will work for everybody. So we need to figure out what works for us. And I have some handy tips that I think everyone should know about anxiety. One is that caffeine, whether that is coffee, tea, Coca Cola, Red Bull, they all exasperate or increase anxiety within you. So they increase the physical symptoms of anxiety. So if you are looking to reduce your anxiety levels, you must start by reducing your caffeine levels, and you will see the difference within 2 days itself. Meditation is not for everybody, and taking deep breaths doesn't always help. This is important to know because we usually suggest this to people like, oh, are you should meditate. कभी ट्राई किया है मेडिटेशन? बहुत ही डिफिकल्ट है, बड़े साल लग जाते हैं to be able to ace it, to be able to learn it properly. And sometimes that's not what somebody needs when they are feeling anxious. They don't need to feel like they can't do something. So, meditation is not a suggestion we give to beginner levels people. If you have been practicing meditation for many years, is when we suggest it. Mindfulness, on the other hand, is more beneficial. Mindfulness is the technique of being present in the current moment. It's similar to grounding, but this is a practice that you do every day. So, when we're eating food, to eat it mindfully, to be able to feel all the textures of it in our mouth, to taste all the flavors of it in our mouth, to be able to experience that food and be present while experiencing it. Not like, oh, we are on our phone and eating and we don't even know what we're eating. So, developing techniques of mindfulness takes practice also, but it's a lot easier to be mindful. Knowing your triggers is half the battle won. If I know my triggers, I can either reduce my triggers or eliminate them or avoid them or figure out how can I best deal with my trigger? What is the best way for me to deal with my trigger? So when I know my trigger, when I have gotten to know my anxiety and I've figured it out, I've sat with it, I've been curious about it, and I've understood my trigger, that is when only I can take the steps, right? Self management comes from self awareness. The first step is to be self aware, then only you can self manage. Next is their circadian rhythm has a huge impact on your anxiety levels. Now, what is a circadian rhythm? It is the natural rhythm of our body that puts us to sleep and wakes us up. When the sun starts setting, there is a chemical called melatonin that is released in our brain, which helps us go to sleep at night. And when we are waking up, there is a chemical called cortisol that is released in our body to help our adrenal gland, our endocrine system to wake up and to give boost of energy to our body. So if we don't sleep and wake up at a regular rhythm, which is हम रोज ही कुछ और कर रहे हैं, एक दिन 4 बजे सोते हैं, एक दिन 2 बजे सोते हैं, फिर 10 बजे उठते हैं, फिर 9 बजे उठते हैं, फिर 6 बजे उठते हैं, फिर 12 बजे उठते हैं. If we do this erratic stuff, our body is also becoming erratic. Our release of melatonin, release of cortisol, release of adrenal is all becoming chaotic. So all of these hormones are just jumping up and down in your body all the time, causing more distress, causing more anxiety. So if we want to manage anxiety, we first need to manage our sleep wake cycle. If we just manage that, half your problems will go away. Take it in writing. Next is don't ask why. Like I said this earlier, don't ask yourself when you're going through something, why is this happening to me? Why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? It's okay. You are feeling it. It is okay. You just need to tell yourself, I'm feeling this and it is okay. What is it that I'm feeling? Can I label this? Can I give it a name? Can I identify it? When we do that, we familiarize ourselves with it. When a stranger walks into our house, we are more scared, right? And we're like, what is this person doing here? When that stranger tells you, hi, this is my name, this is why I'm here, you're like, okay, that's the same thing. If your anxiety comes up and you look at it as a stranger and you're like, why, go away, you're going to be more scared. You're going to create more anxiety. But if you be like, hey, what are you? What are you doing here? What brought you here today? That will help you feel less anxious. Oxytocin helps. Oxytocin is again a chemical that is released in our brain when we have close proximity to other human beings. Like when we hug someone, we hold someone's hand, when we are giving and receiving affection, is when oxytocin is released. And oxytocin has huge benefit when it comes to managing anxiety. So if you have a pet, which is why they say go be around pets, hug them, all of these things, because oxytocin is released. And that brings me to the end of today's session. There are a few comments. I'm just going to read those. And then if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. If we keep ourselves indulged with accepting the surrounding circumstances, so we will keep in the zone. But if we ask why and this, we can reach over towards the starting call. Feel of positivity is power of to get rid of. Yes, positivity is good, but don't use positivity for everything. You denying the fact that you're feeling an emotion is not positivity, that's denial. If I'm telling myself, oh, I'm not feeling anxious, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling great, I'm not feeling anxious, that is denial, that is not positivity. Yes, I am feeling anxious, but I'll get out of this, and I'll make it through, I will manage. That is positivity. There's a very big difference between those two situations. We usually mistake not feeling anything as positivity. No, positivity is when you can look at a situation as it how for what it is and still feel like I know I'll make it through, I know I can do this. That is positivity, and that is very useful. If we keep ourselves indulged with accepting the surrounding circumstances, so we will keep in the zone. But if we ask why am this, we can reach over towards the starting call. Asking why I am like this is like asking yourself, मैं ऐसा क्यों हूँ, मैं ऐसा क्यों हूँ. That is not a fun thing to ask yourself. That's criticizing yourself. Why am I feeling like this? Not why am I like this. मैं ऐसा क्यों हूँ नहीं. पर मुझे, why am I experiencing this? What am I feeling? Being optimistic is definitely a very important factor, but ignoring your negative emotions is not the answer. Negative emotions are normal, natural, and we have given the name of positive and negative. They are just emotions. They are just as it is emotions. Nobody said these are positive emotions, these are negative emotions. We said that. We created that distinction. Having emotions of sadness, grief, shame, embarrassment, fear, neglect, all of these are important human experiences. If you don't allow yourself to feel these important human experiences, you are not even living. So you must feel all of this, because only when you feel all of this can you be able to live your life, because you can't avoid these feelings forever. Yes, being optimistic means that I feel sad, I feel guilt, I feel shame, I feel embarrassed, I feel all of this, but it's okay. I can still have a great life. I still feel happiness also, and I have gratitude for that. Being grateful and being optimistic are not the same thing as being toxically positive. That's very important to know. Any questions?
So thank you for sharing your wonderful knowledge, and I hope our audience learn many more new things from this. And once again, it's a really cool experience like having with you with us, and also for seeing precious time and knowledge with us. And thank you for time.
Thank you so much for having me and for doing this. It's very important to talk about these things. So it's great that you guys have taken the initiative to do that. So thank you so much for having me here.